Hello, my name is Lucy. Welcome to my channel. I share videos on the topic of long COVID, chronic fatigue syndrome, and mind-body approaches that can be helpful with those conditions. So today I wanted to talk about predicting symptoms. And I think this is really helpful to reflect on and interesting because our brain is very good at predicting and hypothesizing what the future might hold, and that can predict how we feel, how we behave, how we feel physically. So in terms of changing, becoming aware of this can be really important. So I'm not a medical professional. This isn't medical or mental health advice. I'm just sharing things that have helped me and ideas based on some of the reading that I've done. Some of this idea came to me when I was making change in my recovery, when I came across the mind-body approach, which is based on the idea that the brain is creating symptoms or that repressed emotions can generate symptoms. And I was trying to become aware of the way that I had been thinking, and naturally, if you're unwell every day for a number of weeks, a number of months, or a number of years, you will expect to feel unwell tomorrow just because, well, why would you expect any different if that's your norm at the moment? To have that feeling of not being well, maybe a feeling of fatigue, a headache, whatever your day-to-day symptoms are. And so if you are predicting feeling unwell, it is more likely then that you will feel unwell. And so when I started to reflect on this, it was just about opening up the possibility that maybe I'm not going to feel unwell tomorrow. Maybe I won't feel fatigued after eating my lunch tomorrow. Maybe these are patterns that I have learned to start to predict. So for instance, when I was recovering, I began to get more energy, began to do more things, but I did still feel fatigued after my breakfast and after my lunch, which was a time that I normally rested. And so I started asking myself, am I feeling fatigued at that time because I'm expecting that feeling of fatigue at that time, because that's normally been a time that I've rested for the past couple of years, and perhaps because I have the idea that I need to rest, or that to digest food takes more energy. And that was something that I just became aware of and started to become a bit more open-minded about, in the sense of allowing the possibility that maybe I won't be tired tomorrow at that time. Maybe I will feel tired, but it's not a sign that I need to rest. Maybe it's a sign that actually I've predicted feeling tired at that time. My body is in that routine, and that's why it's happening. So for people who are really, really unwell and bedbound, resting can still be really important as part of your routine. So I'm not saying for everyone who's using rest as a way of coping to just all of a sudden stop resting. It's just this idea that thinking about what we might be predicting, whether that's predicting symptoms, predicting how we might feel emotionally, predicting how we might feel physically, and how deep those predictions might be that we're not even thinking about them. Because of course we don't think, okay, tomorrow I'll probably feel unwell because I've felt unwell every day for the past 2 years. It's more of an automatic assumption that we have. And so I have been reading a book recently called How Emotions Are Made by Lisa Feldman Barrett. I'll write the name of that book in the description if you're interested in looking at it. She basically talks about how our brains act like a scientist in the world to predict what's going to happen and what things mean. So, for instance, one example that she gives is that we predict that an apple is an edible fruit because of our past experience. So if you walked into a supermarket and you saw a round red object, you would likely not even have to ask yourself, what is this? You would know it's an apple, and you would have a store of information in your brain that helps that prediction, helps you know that's what it is. So for instance, you may have eaten an apple in the past, you may have seen people eating an apple in the past, you're currently in a supermarket, therefore you know that's where people buy food, that's where people buy fruit. So you already are in a position with a lot of knowledge to predict that this red object in front of you is an apple. If, for instance, you saw that in a homeware shop, you might be asking yourself, is that an apple or is that a decoration, like a fake apple? Is it something else? You might be more likely to, if you're interested, go and pick up the object, look at it, see if it's real or if it's fake, see if maybe it's not an apple, it just looked like one from afar. And our brain had predicted that it looked like one based on our past experience of what an apple is. And perhaps it's not an apple, it's a red circular candle or something like that, that on first appearance looked like that. But you would be more likely to challenge that assumption that a red circular object is an apple if you saw it in a context that you were not used to, because of that predictive coding and predictive mechanism that we have in our brain. And I think it can be really important to reflect on this in terms of how the predictive nature of our brain might be affecting our illness. The example I gave before being that if you felt unwell for a long period of time, you'll probably expect to feel unwell tomorrow, just because that's been your norm. That's the information that your brain already has. And what can happen is our brain can gather lots of information and it can become an ingrained pattern because that's what the past has been like. And so we need to change our expectations of the future if we're to get out of this pattern. So another example could be that maybe every time in the past year that you have tried to speak to a friend on the phone for more than half an hour, you have developed a headache. It's very normal that we would start changing our behaviour because of that, and that we would predict those symptoms because of those past experiences. So we might anticipate that after half an hour of speaking to a friend, we need to say goodbye and we need to start to rest because this headache will come on. Or it might be that we, from past experience, have learned that activity has caused our symptoms to increase, and therefore we predict that in the future activity will also cause symptoms to increase. We might also have the assumption that that activity is dangerous, or that symptoms are dangerous because of our emotional experience and how difficult it's been in the past, or also our circumstances and how difficult they have been in the past as a result of having so many symptoms. Like, for instance, not being able to work, not being able to care for our families, not being able to do the enjoyable things that we would normally want to do. So in saying all of this, this is a natural process. It's not that you are creating this situation for yourself. It's more so that naturally, when something has happened a number of times, you will predict that it will happen again. And when it's unpleasant or when it feels dangerous or difficult, we don't want that to happen. So we start to change our behaviour and we start to think in line with what that might mean for our lives. So one thing to think about is how this might be the case for you. Are you predicting that you will feel fatigued tomorrow? Are you on a deep level experiencing symptoms and interpreting them as dangerous? And that might not even be something that you're really thinking about. it might be more automatic because your past experience has been that you feel anxious and you feel concerned when you get symptoms, and therefore there's this loop where you feel as though they're dangerous. The more that you can reflect on this, the patterns that you may have now as a result of the past, the better you can open up those possibilities and suggest to yourself, well, maybe I won't feel unwell tomorrow, or maybe I will be able to start doing this activity again without the impact of symptoms afterwards. Of course, for some people, this could be a really simple solution, and for others it's more complex, and perhaps they need to implement other tools and techniques and reflect on their emotions and have a more varied approach to getting better. But this for me was something that I needed to think about, and I needed to consider how the past had shaped my ideas about the future, about how I would feel physically, and about what's possible as well, because we might be telling ourselves it's not going to be possible for us to ever go back to work, but actually that might be based on your past assumptions and experiences, based on all of those predictions that your brain has made. So start questioning some of these predictions that you have, and it's noticing as well how this might be playing out for us in the present moment. So for example, if I say tomorrow maybe I won't feel unwell when I wake up, maybe I'll feel okay when I wake up, then if tomorrow, despite that thought, I feel unwell when I wake up, it's noticing that, okay, let's not say that that's necessarily going to predict tomorrow. Let's not assume that just because I feel unwell this morning that I'll feel unwell later, or that this whole idea is incorrect because I was open-minded and yet I still felt unwell. I think it takes time for shifts to take place and for our brains to trust that things are changing and that it doesn't need to respond in this way to stay safe or to be okay. So you might still feel unwell every day for however long, but if you're opening the possibility that maybe that won't be the case, and that perhaps it's not a given that the patterns that have existed previously are going to continue, it allows you to change those patterns. They might not change straight away, but it opens the door. And this can seem really simplistic. I'm not saying that this is the only thing that is making you unwell or that is keeping you unwell. I'm just saying this is something that could be helpful to reflect on and that helped me. And I suppose one thing I've learned, which is something I really wouldn't have expected whilst I was unwell, is just the power that our thinking can have and our beliefs can have. And our belief that something is physically wrong with us can be really, really limiting. I also had a belief, even before I got fatigue, that I had a physical injury in my foot, and it had lasted 5 years. It had prevented me from running. It had impacted how much I could walk. And when I started doing this work, I challenged that idea that walking more or running would cause pain in my foot. And the pain in my foot has, over time, it gradually improved, and now it's just not there. If you had told me 5 years ago, when this pain began, that all I needed to do was change the assumption that I had that the pain would be there, I definitely wouldn't have believed that. I would have thought that I would have believed it's still a real injury. There's still something wrong with my foot. The pain is there because something's not okay, something's inflamed. And there could have been physical processes going on. So I've said this before, but I just want to mention it again. Just because a symptom might be caused by the brain or by a protective mechanism that begins in the brain, it doesn't mean that no physical processes are happening in the body. So for some people, they find it really hard to believe in this approach, or they think that what we're saying is it's in your head, which isn't the case. It's saying that the source is the brain, which then will cause physical processes to generate symptoms. So for instance, if I was really embarrassed, my face might go red. And in order for my face to go red, there would have to be some physical processes happening in the body to allow that to happen. So we're not denying that something is happening in your body, but what we are saying is that the cause may not be physical in the sense that you need a solution that's physical. It may be generated by the brain. So hopefully something in this video was helpful for you, and if you liked it, please like and subscribe. If you are struggling with your health situation and your mindset around your health, I am now offering coaching, and I will put a link to my website below. If you would like to join the Facebook group, see the link in the description. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.